And joining me now is Lisa Woolery. Lisa spent much of her life in the world of politics in Orange County, California. And then after fleeing California, tragedy struck. And Lisa's tragic journey and story of survival all began with a pen and a lot of perseverance. I should also add faith as well. Now, Lisa is the author of the brand new book, The Widow's Comeback. Also joining the panel is my former news colleague, Helen Kumari. Helen was the first female Indian American news reporter in the history of Los Angeles media. Helen worked for years at CBS News and NBC in LA and then at PBS. She was one of the most heralded journalists. Then, like with Lisa, tragedy struck, although in a different way, and Helen also had to find a new way to survive. Thank you both so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome. Hi.
Lisa, let's begin with you. Talk about your book, The Widow's Comeback. Who are you? Why did you write the book? What is this all about?
Well, I married my high school sweetheart, Eric Woolery, and we were married for 28 years. And he died suddenly. Actually, while I was chopping broccoli and making dinner, I found him in his office and I unsuccessfully gave him CPR. And when he died, really, my life ended as well because, you know, when you're married, you work together to create a life. And when he left, all of our plans were like gone. And so I put on my big girl pants every day and recreated my life. I love The Widow's Comeback because I want to help widows find their comeback. And what I do is I have a ministry now where I do teachings and I have a newsletter on how to deal with the different things that come up in the month. And I just want to help other widows find their comeback as well.
On the personal level for you, Lisa, what was the toughest part about all of this? And I also read some of your book that you had shared with me. Eric was in the best health possible. I mean, this was crazy.
Well, Eric had just had a physical and he had great health. He was managing his weight. He was healthy. He was exercising. In fact, he had had his first colonoscopy. His dad died of colon cancer and they had removed some polyps and he was so excited. This was about 8 months before he died, saying, "I'm going to be okay. I'm going to walk Katie down the aisle." So that was, Katie was 8 then or 9 then. Anyway, so it was completely sudden. And then to answer your question about like the hardest thing was that I lost my identity when he died. And so I had to figure out who I was. I had been with Eric since I was 14 and had been married for 28 years. And so I didn't know who I was. And here I am with these tweens. And so I had to I'm still, I guess, figuring out who I am.
I did read some of your book. As I said, you had sent me some passages. You describe, I don't want to get too personal. If I'm getting too personal, I apologize. There was a lot of drinking and dating going on after losing Eric. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, well, I would actually, when I wrote, I'd sit down with a big glass of wine. The numbing was good. I'm not gonna say that like maybe the drinking helped a little bit. I went on 100 first dates, and I'm not even gonna say that I was sober on all of them. Like I said, I lost my identity. I didn't know who I was without Eric. Part of me thought I need to find out who I am through a man, which is not the right way. I mean, I've righted the ship. I still like wine. I still go on dates, but why I wrote my book and published my book, Harry warts and all, is because I want widows to know that they're going to be a hot mess about something. Drinking, men, finances, neglecting your kids, whatever it is, you're going to be okay. Like you need to recalibrate your life. You need to find out who you are, and you're not going to be perfect about it. And Helen probably understands this too. Like, as a woman in our society, we have to have it all together and we have to be the perfect, I don't know, church lady or however it is. And like my book, I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not ashamed of my story. And that's how I healed. So I think that the more we can talk about it, the more we can share with friends and people our journeys, the healthier we're going to be and the more we're going to bounce back.
Helen Kumari, to you now. I've known you for years. I know I have great respect and admiration because of what you have gone through. Helen, you really had it all back in the day. You were one of the best reporters here in Southern California, no question. You and I worked together for years at PBS. You had money, you had success, you had fame, and then all of a sudden, like with Lisa, your life changed so drastically in a bit of a different way. You've never gone public. You've never told anyone. You've never shared your story. Thank you for being the first to share it here with our audience. What happened to you, Helen?
Well, I was working as a reporter for NBC, and I was covering a veterans event. And as I was finishing the report, that's it from here. I'm Helen Kumari, back to you. All of a sudden I started crying on screen, and I wasn't feeling anything. I was just crying. So, I got off, and as soon as I walked away, the executive producer got in my ear, Helen, are you okay? What's going on? And I had no answers. I didn't know. I just, would you call it a breakdown? I don't know. All I know is I was on TV, and whatever was the health, whatever it was coming out. I was crying. Now, I was depressed, but I didn't know what was going on. I think that a lot of us don't do self-reflection. I knew I was stressed. I knew that a lot of things in life wasn't going right, but I just kept making myself go. And I didn't realize until that happened. And then I left NBC and went to a series of doctors that I was going through depression and attention deficit and health concerns that were all affecting me.
What was the solution back then? Was it medication? Was it therapy? Was it not working? Was it not getting stressed? I mean, how did you put yourself together? Because I know your life has been an extraordinary challenge from that day going forward.
I think that, and I think Lisa can relate to this, when something strikes out of the blue, I'm just shell-shocked. I just didn't know what was going on, and it took me a long time to figure it out. But I had my sense of humor, and I had my faith. So as I was just trying to figure this out, I just kept telling myself, it's going to be okay, even though the voice in the back of my head was, what's going on? This is awful. You're terrible. I had so much shame. I didn't know who to ask what was going on. I didn't know what was wrong. So I think looking back in the big picture, it took all of it. And thank God I'm a journalist. And so when I was able to see something is wrong, I turned over every stone to find out what was wrong with me. Now, back then, we didn't have social media or Facebook, or everyone didn't have video phones to be able to record the news. So I had no way of knowing that there was anyone else in the world out there like me. So I just did my research. I found good counselors and therapists and doctors and church and a group of women that were going through similar circumstances. And it took all of it. One thing wouldn't have helped.
Lisa, in your tragedy, you've been so unselfish. I know you've traveled all over the U.S. You've talked to women who have dealt with horrendous adversity, horrendous tragedy. What's the worst part about all this from what these women are telling you? What are their stories that they're sharing?
Well, widows become widows in many different ways. The hardest way is when husbands commit suicide, which is something that happens, and maybe seems like it's been happening more. But you have to figure out how to find your comeback. And I like some of the things that Helen was saying, like humor and faith. Those things are things that really help us get through. And I think too is finding like the little part of yourself that's still there. For me, it was writing. I was, a professional writer as in public relations. So I could write about how I was feeling and how I was doing. And I was doing some humorous writing too about being a widow because there are some like funny things that happen. And so I was able to slowly piece it back together that way. Everybody has to find their own way. And again, you have to find that thing that's inside of you that you can build on.
I never told anyone what was happening. I didn't know what was happening, but I never confided. If you talk to anyone who knew me really well during that time period, no one knew that I was going through some kind of a physical and mental breakdown. And I think the number one thing is each of us know people in our lives that are really struggling with something and they're masking. And I know with me, I would just shove it off. I'd be like, oh, you're fine. I wouldn't let it in, Yeah, I'm stressed, but that's the job. So I know that there are people out there that are silently suffering. And I'm sure Lisa met these people too. I think the number one thing that you have to do is community. You have to find like-minded people because none of us can do this alone. Figuring out you need another set of eyes. Mm-hmm. You need another set of eyes to say, I noticed this, I noticed that. Have you considered this? And now I have no excuse. I have all these tools. I have the internet. I have Zoom and FaceTime, and I can reach out. And there are people that we all know that are suffering in silence, whether it's a physical thing, a mental, Rubik's Cube that they're trying to figure out. We all know that. And I know I felt such shame, and I knew that I would be argued with and talked out of. You're fine, that I didn't tell anyone.
I want to ask both of you the same question because both of you, I just spoke to you the other day. We didn't really get into much on the phone. I usually just leave it all for the interview. Both of you interestingly mentioned faith as part of your healing. Lisa, I'll start with you. How did faith in what? Not sure. You can have faith in lots of things, but what did faith mean to you in that how did it help heal your journey and help heal your soul, I should say, maybe, and get you through this tragic journey?
Well, I've always been like a faithful Christian churchgoer. I've always prayed, always had faith. Eric and I shared faith. We share it with our kids. But after Eric died, I was in such shock that I didn't think about God a whole lot, except for I'd go to church and just cry, like submitting to my journey. But one day I actually tripped and fell on the stairs coming down, and I had a little poster put up, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for hope and a future, which is Jeremiah 29:11. And I fell on the stair and I stopped, and there it was, like right in front of me. And I thought, God has a plan for me. I'm not just out here like a buoy in the ocean. And that really brought me back to having faith in God and trusting God for my journey. And that was, 3-4 years ago. And each month, each year, I've gotten closer to God, and I've been able to rely on Him more and more in my faith. And my prayer life is great. Those really help me as well.
Well, for me, it's everything. I believe you have to believe in something greater than yourself, because otherwise you're all alone out here. And I have a lot of friends that, as we go through things, as we get older, when you're young, you haven't experienced anything yet. You haven't experienced a death or divorce or a huge breakup or a fire. Your story isn't, you haven't been tested yet. And as you go through that, I quickly found that my faith was everything, and having people to talk to, because if I'm the only source, if the answers are in me, we're in trouble. Because I was broken. I still am. And I have to know that there's something bigger than me that I don't understand, that I can have faith in. And that, to me, that's God. And different people have different things. And I would agree with Lisa, how she says, she still drinks. Thank God for all the tools he gives us here on this earth to numb ourselves. I think that God supports you. And I know in my story, I can say that's why I'm still standing.
Helen?
There's no question.
I was going to say, Helen, you might agree with me. I've never been so broken yet so healed at the same time. And that is what my faith has done for me.
Right. I mean, I went through, thank God I searched out lots of groups. There were groups at church, there were online groups. I searched out groups. And for someone who has such faith, I got mad. I got mad at God, and I would lay there and go, I can't believe you've done this. I can't believe you're allowing that to happen. And then I'd feel guilty. And my pastor would say, you know what? God can handle it. If he's so much bigger than you, you're like a little 2-year-old having a tantrum. Get it out. Tell him your frustration. He knows it anyway. So I really went off the deep end. I would have these screaming conversations with, I cannot believe that after how good I've been, or why me, that I would have to go through this. And you look around, right, Lisa, and you see you're comparing yourself. I'm watching TV and all my friends are still on TV, and you're lying to yourself and you're saying, no, you're healthy, you can do it. But there's other stuff going on. And I trust that is moving me toward a higher purpose. And that's what has got me. So yeah, I don't have this big life anymore. I'm not on TV. Everything has changed now. We're in a whole different time, 2025. But we still all impact people every day, whether that's the mailman or getting gas, our neighbor. And in that, my purpose is to tell my story and encourage people. And that's enough. I might not be available to 17 million people in the broadcast arena, but I'm available right here to the person right beside me to say, hold on. And if you can't hold on, let go. Do whatever you need to do. Just explore all of it. Just go there, and you'll come out the other side better.
You said something a few minutes ago. You said you're broken so many years after the incident when you're in front of the camera and you couldn't do your report, and now you're saying so many years later you're broken. Do you mind if I ask, what do you mean when you say you're broken?
What I think of myself, our self-talk is pretty bad. And I've had counselors tell me, I can't believe you talk to yourself that way. But the truth is, all of us out there do. So when I would go by the TV and see my friends out there covering something, the voice would say, yeah, you could have done that too. You're a failure. You are a waste of skin. And I would tell myself this every time, but I'm funny, so I would make fun of it. But this is the internal dialogue. And I'm broken in the sense that none of us grow up and go to college. And, I had my life planned out. At 22, I knew everything. I did. Now I don't know anything, but it's letting go of that. And I'm broken in the sense that I'm not all put together, in my health and in love and in finances. I'm a failure in so many of those, but it's showing up as broken. And I think what's great is that now we don't put that mask on. Women aren't afraid to say, I'm really hurting, and just let it be. Just no answers. I am really hurting, men and women, and I think that's what's different.
You are one of the strongest people I know. Lisa, are you broken, or are you better now? How are you doing? How are your kids doing?
I will always be broken, and that's one of the things that I learned. When you knew me back when I was a PIO, I was kind of perfect, but that wasn't very approachable. I think my brokenness makes me vulnerable, and it makes me be the kind of person that can help a neighbor, or I can help a widow. But generally, I think we're doing good. My daughter is 16. My son is 17. They're both doing wonderful in school, and they are absolutely amazing people. I think my message to Helen and to other women, and I know, Helen, you already know this, is in your brokenness, you become strong. And so when you have really hard times, embrace them, move through them, find your things that are going to help you move forward. Faith, for me, it was writing, a little wine. But find those things that are going to help you, and then just do them, and know that you're not going to be perfect, and your life is going to be okay. You're going to be okay. You're going to make it through the rough patch.